My name is Stephen Barclay. I'm from the Brisbane Brahmakumara Centre, and welcome to tonight's event, which is a collaboration between the centre here in Brisbane and our centre on the Gold Coast. And our special guest tonight, Sister Maureen, who has just written an amazing book called A Mystic at the Edge, a Western Woman Coloured by Eastern Ways. And today we're going to have a conversation with Maureen about her journey and the stories that have filled her life, that have now filled the pages of this book. And however, we do honour that, like everyone, we're leading all very busy lives. So we just thought that we would start with a minute of a centering exercise, honouring that if you're like me, this is my fourth online meeting for the day. And so just to bring us into the moment, I'm going to invite Maureen to say hello to everybody and just ask Maureen if you could conduct this centering exercise for us all.
Hello, and thank you to everyone for joining us. I know everyone, as Stephen said, is quite busy. So thanks for joining us, and let's all join together by just spending a few moments centering ourselves so that we can really be fully present together for this hour. So it starts very gently with just observing the breath. Just to become present here. Give myself a bit of a thank you for taking time for myself. Just let go.
Thanks, Maureen. And yes, our lives are really full, and small moments like that remind us of our capability to just stop whenever we can and just reconnect. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you tonight, and thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the book.
Yes, it's quite a journey. Of course, halfway through, I think most people who've written a book think, what am I doing? But it's too late to go back now. So I did reach that stage.
Yeah, lovely. Tell us about the process of writing the book, and I know that it was something that was in your mind for many years, and you were waiting, for the words to come to you, but it sort of worked a little bit differently. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah, I think now it was almost 20 years ago that many people at that time were encouraging me to write a book. Someone even offered to sponsor me, like pay for my living while I just sat and wrote. But I always felt a book should come through me and not from me. And when I was writing, I felt, no, it's coming from me. And to me, there's a very different energy in that. And I can feel if a book is coming through someone. It's almost as if that's what's meant to come into the world. But then I ended up 2.5 years ago, just over 2 years ago, in Chile. And I just found myself not speaking Spanish. And so I had a little time on my hands. I had a beautiful room where out the window I could see the Andes Mountains and down below the garden. And I had a lovely desk. So I just thought, no, let me just start writing. And so it started then. And then from there, I moved to Taiwan. And again, I speak very little Chinese. And so I had more time. And so I just, whenever I had time, kept writing. And it was interesting because then I saw it started to come through. So it was interesting. I thought I had to wait until it came through, but actually I had to open the channel. And so, yeah, it was a good lesson.
And
Because I'm
how,
writing now, I think.
thanks, Maureen. And how do you think that relates to everyday life? Because it may not be a book that we're writing, but we're writing our lives, and we're waiting for that moment. And what you're talking about is allowing things to come through you. How does that, what does that look like in everyday mundane life for you?
Actually, for me, I don't know if you're familiar with the BKs, but we meditate very early in the morning. And it's at that time that I usually get inspirations, I guess you could call them. And I follow those through. I've got a few that I'm working on at the moment, and we'll see where they go. But even if they don't result in maybe what I'm seeing in my vision, I make a lot of good connections. So I enjoy the journey. So I don't worry too much about the outcome, but I just think this is coming to me, so I'll do it. So I think one of the things that I've learned to do is to trust my intuition. And I do very much go on intuition, and I have faith in my intuition. I'm not even sure if it's doing anything, but I just trust that whatever I do, it's come from inside somewhere, and so I just do it.
Hmm. We'll come back to the book in a moment, but I'm just interested in exploring this coming through, which you're also giving the term of intuition. What is your experience of the ingredients that helps build your ability to listen to this flow, to listen to your intuition? You know, what are the things that you've been doing? You're an experienced yogi for 40 years. What are the things that you do that helps you build that capacity to be in the flow and to listen to your intuition?
That when I meditate in the morning, I always first have the aim to kind of really surrender myself to the light and just let that light touch me in some way. Only if I'm not really going anywhere, I might start thinking of something that is interesting and will engage my thoughts rather than maybe go to sleep, because it is very early. So I do know I need to, keep my mind aware and alert. But I think that practice of really surrendering, some people might say emptying, but I surrender to the light. Well, that's what I always attempt to do. And with that connection, I think this is when things, for me, things come through. And I get excited. I usually get a feeling of joy and excitement when something's kind of an idea that I'm feeling I need to do something with.
Hmm.
At other times, it's not like that. Like, for example, I was in India working on a project for a few years, and it kept coming to my mind that I should leave this now. So I gave 1 year's notice. I didn't just up and leave, but I just felt clear that this should be my last year. There was no reason. I was really enjoying what I was doing. I was enjoying the people I was working with. There was no reason except for this inner voice. And then I thought I will go to a Bowen therapist when I go back. I've never been to a Bowen therapist, and I didn't even have anything particularly wrong. But I just follow these things and they work out very easily. The person I ended up working with was going to a Bowen therapist. So, and they treat two people at the same time. So it was so effortless. And then she knew the BKs and she didn't even charge money. So, and I don't know, I didn't have anything particularly wrong, but I felt that I probably had some alignment that avoids. So I don't often get sick because I follow this whatever you call it, intuition, touching, whatever it is. And I don't often get sick, and I think this is partly the reason for it.
Mm. I think this connects to the title of your book, Mystic at the Edge. And what I'm interested in is, what is this edge? And is this moment that you've just described an edge?
Well, what I feel is I always, I think, live on the edge, meaning I don't settle in anywhere. And I don't think I ever have. When I look back even to my teenage years, I had groups of friends, but I didn't kind of feel stuck with any particular group or person. I always wanted to keep myself fluid. So I don't like cliques and, I like to be part of a group where I'm contributing, but not a sense of being limited. So one thing is that, and the other is, when I'm on the edge, when I'm on the edge, in fact, I often even sit on the edge of a seat. I don't know if that's good, but I always feel that, I'm ready. I'm ready. And I think that's what's kept me flowing.
Hmm. Okay. And I think that, what people are interested when they read a book is that how does that relate to my life? And how do we draw from your experiences and bring them into everyday life? We might be a mother, we might be a father, a brother, a sister, we have an everyday job. How do we bring your message from this book into our everyday life? What's the key thing that we can use?
I guess the other word you could use for the edge is a comfort zone. And that's what I was going to call the book in the beginning, going beyond your comfort zone. So I think not to get in, or not to allow comfort zones to limit me.
Okay.
And like now I'm based in Taiwan. I'm just here in Australia because of COVID. But it's very hot and I don't speak the language. I'm out of any comfort zone there in that sense. But when I went there, I feel a lot of comfort. So yeah, not getting caught in comfort zones, I guess. And I think we can all do that, whether we're a parent, whatever it is, whatever situation we're in.
I think from reading your book, and just for anybody just to go to the contents page, there's plenty of moments that you just look at and think you definitely got yourself out of your comfort zone. And one of those was when you travelled across land to get to India. Tell us about that story.
Well, yeah, actually, the story starts mostly around when I met my husband, because he was going to be a Buddhist monk. So he said to me, you should think about marrying me because I don't plan to have a house and children and to settle down in any way. I don't know what I'm doing in this world. I don't like this world. I want to know what it's all about. And I thought he was a little bit negative, really. And I thought he would change. But I very quickly came into his way of thinking. And so we decided to travel across Asia and the Middle East. In those days, you could, the late 70s. Now you couldn't even do that. So we, took a cargo boat, for example, from Medan to Penang. So, really very, very rough. I almost fainted because it was really so overwhelmingly beyond my comfort zone. So there's been times like that, many times, I guess, many times like that, where I'm really out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, sure. And now, do you find that it's easier for you? And what is it that makes you easy to be outside of your comfort zone?
Is it easier? Yeah, I just think because I can see the value of it, because wherever it's taken me has always enriched my life. And like, for example, at one point I was asked to go to Pakistan. I was a little bit afraid to go to Pakistan, but then I thought, I also believe in the philosophy of karma. So I thought, well, if my karma is good, nothing will happen, and I will just take a little bit of care. But I found the Pakistani people so beautiful, and it was a very good experience. So if we're willing to go beyond our comfort zones, there's a lot waiting for us, I think. A lot of rich experiences.
Yes, I'm sure, and we just invite the listeners and the people who are tuning in via YouTube. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Morny, just please type it in, and we'll receive it at this end, and I'll ask Morny on your behalf. Morny, I can remember years ago that you were telling me, I think, that you had focused on a particular, I think it was love, for many years. And what love was. Tell us about your study of love and where it took you and what your realizations were.
So the book's pretty much divided into three parts. One is the spiritual travelogue, as you might call it, and the second part does address that whole issue, that whole thing of love, because I think I studied, this is a university, a spiritual university, and I majored, I would say, in love for about 10 or 15 years. And because people knew that that's what I was very interested in studying, they would give me books and share poems, and I would ask people, what's your understanding of love? What's your definition of love? And it's been a very, very involved journey, of course, because one of my very favorite authors, Mike George, after studying love for so many years, he pretty much summarized it in a book called The 7 Myths of Love. And I was just amazed because he just put it all into this essence. And I think one thing that he also came to realize is that I need to be love and not give love. Whenever I think of giving love, it's a bit calculating who's worthy of my love and who should I love. I've only got so much love. But if I can focus on being love, then I can be the same with everyone. And if people don't relate to that, it's okay, because I can just be me. Like a flower is just a flower. Some people get hay fever smelling the flowers. It's not the flower's fault. So I thought the more natural and real thing is to be love.
And you mentioned that for 10 or 15 years you studied this subject. What do you think the lessons are that can be taken away from that for the everyday mystic? And in terms of that intensity that you had, or that focus, what are the lessons as a spiritual student that we can take from that?
I think this thing of being love is probably the biggest, because even after realizing this particular aspect, I was asked to give a talk, and I gave the topic of the courage to love, because I was being challenged in a particular relationship. And just before I gave the talk, we had meditation as usual. And I thought, wrong topic. What am I talking about? If I say courage to love, I'm setting myself up for a lot of complication. And so it's so easy to forget being love. Even after realizing it, we still forget it. So even when we say to a child, I love you, it's actually, I don't think, really very wise. I would say it's more wise to say to a child, I am love and you are love. And to bring up a child with that kind of message that you are love. Because if we bring them up with the feeling, I love you, we set up dependency, which always causes sorrow. And so I know we don't have words. I mean, I love you is so easy to say. I am love, you are love. It's not a fluid kind of way to talk, but it's conscious.
Lovely point. And I'm just wondering, in terms of your exploration of this subject matter, that there seems to be a few principles around it. Was one is that there was the subject that you were studying and was the consistency, but there was also the experimentation with silence and meditation over a long period of time. Do you think that it's a good idea for students, spiritual students, to have a subject in mind for a period of time?
I feel it's essential to have a subject in mind for each and every meditation sitting, because when I have a focus, I get an experience. If I don't have a focus, it's kind of nice, it's peaceful, but it's not really eventful in the sense like an insight, an experience, a realization. But when I really want to understand something, then it brings me good fruit. And I think this is the basis of the Raj Yoga meditation, that whatever we think about, we get an experience. So I can think myself into whatever experience I choose. Like for at one point, I focused on, for example, one thing I focused on was the difference between love and compassion. And I did a study around that. I asked people, do you think you're more compassionate or loving? And when I focused on this, in my reading and my inquiry, and then I'd sit to meditate, I'd get insights. So it kind of went together.
Lovely. So it's the focus of a particular subject matter. It's the contemplation and it's the meditation around that, and that brings you insights. And then what do you do with those insights? Is it a process of continuous experimentation?
I would say it's experimentation, but more than anything, it's remembering the insight. Because as I said, even though I had that realization, I forgot it, and gave myself a topic that I didn't believe in. I gave myself the topic, and then I remembered. So, we can realize many things, but keeping them in our awareness is where the practice is needed. And in awareness as I interact with people, not just when I'm sitting in meditation, but, to really make it the way I operate.
Yeah, lovely. And what I'm hearing you say is that awareness is a practice. And yeah, it's lovely. And I'm interested, you've met many people, you've lived in many different countries. Who are those people that have really taken you to the next level on your in your spiritual endeavors? Who were they and how did they influence you?
Actually, there are many, but what I feel is it's the interaction that's very valuable, because I meet such a cross-section of people, and I learn from, and I think that's what I notice when I meet people now. I think, oh, you're in my book, in some way. Maybe I haven't named them, but I've referenced something I've learned. So whether it was a businessman in Hong Kong who was experiencing a lot of stress, and I said, please don't go to the doctor. He was going to go to the doctor to get medication. I said, well, you're coming here and I need examples. It's all very well for me to say you can conquer stress through meditation, but if you do it, it really means more. And so I challenged him and he did that. And now, so many years later, as he's, taken on even more responsibility, he said, I never get stressed. So, I learn from those because, well, it's like experimenting, and it's like a teacher, or any kind of teacher, a sports teacher, when you see the result of the coaching, if you like, or the teaching, and you see where that person takes it, it gives you more faith in it, but it also enriches, both sides. So, yeah, I think there's been so many. I've mixed with so many people from, you know, there was one girl I used to live with who kind of grew up on the back of water buffaloes. And, you know, I mean, she was also someone who really enriched my life by just getting to know her. And in Taiwan, I live with a tea master. That's another whole world. So there's so many worlds. And when I have had glimpses into perhaps what I don't know, the word super consciousness might be a little bit high flying, but just glimpses of those moments where I feel I know everything. And what the experience was, it was like I could see a whole world in everyone around me. And I think by going into people's worlds, maybe that helps me to see the interconnection and the tapestry. I don't know. So I think it's part of the method.
Lovely. I mean, even when I ask you the question, I had in my mind that you're going to tell me about some supersonic yogi, but you're telling us about your everyday interactions, where you've had your some of your greatest learnings and your greatest inspirations. And I'm sure possibly people that are listening into that are also thinking, wow, it's not about a supersonic yogi, it's just in those mundane moments that we can be inspired by others.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. And there's one of the people I met, and he's written, you know, one of the reviews for the book, Shikhar Dhawan, a cricketer. And I call him and we talk from time to time, or he calls me, and kind of I'm the yogi and he's the warrior. And I learn a lot from him about being a warrior, because I feel I need that in my life. I'm more engaged with what's gentle and, you know. And actually I went to a game with his wife when he was playing in Australia, and I saw, wow, you know, he's a lead batsman. So you really go out as a warrior. So I like, that's
opening batsman.
Yeah. So that's how I learn from people, by seeing, you know, what do they bring into their life? What kind of challenges do they have? And, you know, how do they surmount those? You know, like, for example, having millions of people with an expectation of you, you know, and, you know, it's a big thing. So I can raise my awareness through these interactions.
It appears that your process of learning, or your model of learning, has the hallmarks of curiosity and humility as their foundation. What other virtues do you think that you've really drawn upon on your journey?
Yeah, one of the interesting ones is courage, because I don't particularly feel that I'm a person that's not afraid. But I read a saying and it said, courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid, but it's when you see what you want and you don't see anything in between. And I think my courage is that kind of courage, quite blind in a way. And that's why often I'm halfway through that particular experience before I realize, oh my God, what am I doing? And it's too late to turn back. So that's a common experience that I have. But, you know, what's been achieved through that is really incredible. Like the first thing, when I went to Hong Kong, I was hardly, I think, 24 years old. And there was another lady working with me, and she had the grand vision of having an Asian women's convention. We'd never even helped to organize an event, let alone be the organizers ourselves, in a new country, so young, no experience. But we pulled off this event that ended up being for 3 days. And in the middle, it was going absolutely perfectly. And we looked at each other and said, did we organize this? So, you know, once you've done it once, you know that, well, I feel I don't need to be afraid. If I've got an inspiration, I'll just go for it. And I trust, I have the faith. but I don't even think that. I just do it. Actually, I don't even think of trust and faith. Otherwise, I might get worried. I just do it.
And that's another example of letting things flow through you.
Mm.
Yeah. So
actually, Taiwan has been the greatest experience of that. Like I just, again, got that, very clear message: go to Taiwan and open a meditation center with so little money, hardly any Chinese, and I knew one person. But, it all worked out.
that was enough.
Yep.
So we have a question from Jasmine, and her question is, when you were new on this path, did you have doubts, and how did you deal with those? Thank you, Jasmine.
Well, when I first started in the very beginning, I was very alert to see what kind of organization this was. And somebody said, oh, I think it's a cult. And so I was really watchful, and I did quite a bit of, that you didn't have Google in those days. So your research was really looking at the people and seeing what's going on, talking to the people. So, so I kind of got through that. And then whenever there was any doubts about the path I've chosen, or even the philosophy, it always became clear in my mind. I don't usually take more than 48 hours. 48 hours is my time, that I think maximum time to get through almost anything. Almost anything, not everything, but almost anything. And so I can usually get through just through my own reflection and
Okay.
yeah.
So reflection is a part of that. And then the others that you talked about that probably relates to this question is the courage.
Sorry, Stephen, your voice is breaking.
Oh, okay. Yes. So yes, just about courage. The courage is the other aspect of that.
Mm.
Yeah, lovely. And you also talk in your book about the power of other. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. If there's one weakness I have, I think it is, being affected by people's vision on me. So I'm quite mindful. I try not to do that to others, to really keep a faith in through my vision. I don't think I'm affected as much by words as vision. So when I picked up this book, it was The Power of the Other, and I thought it was going to be giving some insights into this, but it was actually talking about the power of the other and how we can empower another person. And I think that is more the message that we need to have. And it kind of is miraculous how we can empower another person. So the power of the other is really empowering. And for that, we do need to have faith in the other person.
Yeah, and how do you build that faith, particularly because in the heat in the heat of heat of the moment, that is often quite challenging and quite difficult. What has helped you build that capacity, that faith, to be able to see goodness in others?
I think because I know where I started, and I really didn't know. I was so young when I started Raj Yoga, and I had hardly any experience. I'd never given a talk. I'd never written an article. As I said, I'd never organized a conference, and yet I could do everything, and so why can't others do it? If I can do it with no skills and no great intelligence or facilities, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So I think anyone can do it as good as me, because I'm just doing my best. And I don't have all the resources in so many ways, but so I think if I can do it, anyone can do it.
And can you give us a story where you've used the power of the other and your own vision on somebody that has helped somebody that may have been an obstacle to you, or there may have been some conflict?
Well, what came to mind was not so much the conflict, I'll think about that, but I'll just tell you a story about a woman who I said to her, would you teach our positive thinking course? Because you're very, very clear in your communication. And she was an Austrian woman who had been brought up in England. And she said to me, no, I don't think I'm clear at all. And I thought, really? I think she's so clear. I said, do you mind if I ask other people and see what they say? So I asked other people, and people said, yeah, she is so clear when she communicates. And so I went back to her and I said, it's not just me that thinks this. So because she didn't have courage, she, really confidence in herself, she went and did a course, Dale Carnegie or one of those courses. And then she became a coach and, and she, of course, took on that role of teaching, and she came to see something in herself that she really didn't see. And
Okay.
so, that was very empowering for her, but it made me realize that we really don't know ourselves very often.
Mm-hmm. And what I appreciate about you, Morning, is that you don't take something on face value. And you said, well, do you mind if I go and research that and ask others what they think? And then you were able to challenge that perspective that she had of herself.
Yeah, one of the sayings, the book I've pulled out a lot of sayings that have helped me in life, and one of them is, "I may be wise, I may be otherwise." And it's an anonymous quote that I found somewhere, but I, really apply that to myself because I think I know, but maybe I don't.
Mm.
So it's a good one to live with, I think.
And look, thanks very much, Morning, as we're coming to the end of tonight's conversation. And I'm sure that people have drawn a lot from your sense of curiosity and your willingness to change your perspectives in situations. And if anybody has any more questions, please put them uh, in the chat box, in the box at YouTube. But what we might do is we're going to close out with a meditation. But before we do that, I just wanted to ask you, what was your feeling after the book was finally in your hands and published? What was that feeling like?
Actually, because we're in a bit of a lockdown everywhere, first of all, it was like, I have something to work with and to connect with other people about. And so that was one great feeling. And also, I think the main aim of the book is to get people to think. If people disagree with me, I'm very happy. I just like people to think, because when people think, they can come to their own conclusions. And so, I really, one of the things that's coming in the morning is getting this book out into correctional centers, into different places where I think if people could just think a bit more, maybe they can see things differently. And so, yeah, I do hope it's a tool for people to reflect and just to think about their own questions and philosophy of life, because the third part of the book is philosophy, how my philosophy sits against others, and what I've studied, the various different, in particular Buddhism, because I come more from a Buddhist background than anything else. So yeah, kind of seeing how Raj Yoga sits against that. And so yeah, so it's a very, very good feeling. I'm not, I mean, the book must have come through me, because I don't know how it came. And when, I went to the book launch and someone said, well, you signed the book. And I said, oh yeah, that's what authors do, don't they? So it's kind of like, I'm not very aware that I've written the book. So I'm happy for that feeling, because that is the feeling that it must have just come through, because here it is now.
Lovely, lovely. And where can people get the book?
It is available through Amazon and Kobo and Goodreads and all those ones.
Yeah.
It will be available through our publishing house, the Eternity Inc. So soon it will be available through the BK centres.
Lovely. Okay, so if they want to find it, they just go onto Amazon and just give them the title of the book once more.
Yeah.
Just give everybody the title of your book once more.
Okay. So it's Mystic at the Edge. And that's enough, actually. You'll get it, just Mystic at the Edge. But the rest is A Western Woman Coloured by Asia.
Great. All right. So thanks so much, Maureen, for joining us today. And if you could just take us out with a meditation for the next 5 minutes and to give people an experience of that deep inner faith that you have, that deep courage and that great sense of curiosity for changing the way you see the world. So over to you, Maureen.
Yeah, so we will just spend these few moments reflecting on some of the things that have come up this evening. So just to see this image in front of me of the light, radiant light. This is the light of myself, a non-physical light, point of energy. I use this body, but I am the life force expressing myself through the body. It's being referred to as the peace pulse. And deep within myself, regardless of what's going on outside, my mind might react, my intellect might question, but going deeper, I can get in touch with the peace pulse deep within myself, unchanging, still, constant. And in this silence and stillness, as my mind becomes clear, and refreshed, I'm open to newness, insights. Whenever anything's going on outside myself, I can always go within and connect with that pulse that is within, and connect with the light beyond, the unchanging, eternal, constant force. Yoga is this connection. It is powerful. It is unique. It is magical. So as I bring myself back into the awareness of sitting in the room where I'm sitting, even sitting in this body, I try to keep this awareness of myself as the peace pulse. So I hope you can see that just within a few moments we can go to another space completely. This is magic. So thank you very much to the centres and to Stephen and everyone who's been behind organising this, and to all of you for joining this evening.